What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Primetime Sports Podcast, hosted by Joey Mailari. I hope all of you had a great July 4th weekend, and hope all you guys had a great, relaxing, long weekend. The weather was really nice for most of it, so hope you guys got to go out and enjoy it. Today, I'm going to be breaking down some of what has been happening within the NBA since the start of free agency, including the Celtics trading for Malcolm Brogdon, and where the Nets stand currently within the Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant saga. After talking about the NBA, I'm going to be finishing up by talking about the Red Sox and some of their biggest players and how they've been performing as of late in their struggles, such as Xander Bogaerts and JD Martinez. I'm going to save some of what I was going to talk about today of what's going on within the NBA and talk about it tomorrow. So today I'm just going to primarily focus on the Celtics, what's going on there, then Kevin Durant, and then also Rudy Gobert's trade to the Minnesota Timberwolves. So anyways, to start things off, Danilo Gallinari, who was bought out by the Spurs after being part of the DeJounte Murray trade that sent the star point guard to the Atlanta Hawks. He agreed to a two-year, $13 million taxpayer mid-level exception deal with the Celtics. He's coming off a good season with Atlanta. Not his best, but a very good year efficiency-wise. Shot 38.1% from three, 43.4% from the field, 90.4% from the line, 11.7 points per game to go along with 4.7 rebounds and 1.5 assists. In his 13-year career, the Italian forward averaged 15.6 points per game, 4.8 rebounds per game, 38.2% shooter from three, 87.7% free throw shooter, and a career 42.8% field goal percentage. So he's coming in and giving the Celtics a lot of veteran leadership off the bench and a lot of scoring. That's what the Celtics really needed. He was a 90.4% free throw shooter this past season, which was good enough to be fifth in the NBA. So that's a huge add for a Celtics team who shot 74.8% from the free throw line in the NBA Finals. And then you look at it in the 2019-2020 season, he was a 92.5% free throw shooter. So he really has been such a great free throw shooter over his entire career, and the Celtics really struggled with not only scoring in the NBA Finals from the bench, and then free throw shooting, and then also turnovers were a big issue for the Celtics, and that's something he can come in and help the Celtics with. If you look at it, he has a career 1.2 turnovers per game average. In his 2 seasons with Atlanta, so these past 2 years, he averaged only 0.7 turnovers per game, so less than a turnover per game in 117 games, and averaged 24.7 minutes per game. So it's not like he's sitting on the bench the whole game and is coming in for a minute and not turning the ball over. He played just about half of the game every single game. 24.7 minutes is just about half of 48 minutes. So half the game in his 117 games with Atlanta, and averaged less than one turnover per game, 0.7 turnovers per game. So that's going to be a really big help for the Celtics. All in all, he had the second best turnover percentage in the NBA this past year, turning the ball over just 5.4% of every 100 plays on average. So he's not only going to help the Celtics and provide them, a lot of depth on the bench, he's going to help them with ball control, shooting from the three, free throw shooting, all of which the Celtics really desperately needed in the NBA Finals, and that's something that I mentioned before in one of my last episodes, that the Celtics really could have used more depth off the bench, and he was a great add by Brad Stevens, a huge pickup for the Celtics, and I think he's going to play a big role for them this upcoming season. And he also only got the taxpayer mid-level exception, so it's just 2 years, $13 million, $6.5 million just about per year. So that's a very good deal for the Celtics, saves them money, and then also he wanted to come to Boston after being bought out by San Antonio, after being traded from Atlanta to San Antonio in that DeJounte Murray deal. He chose to come to the Celtics, so he wanted to be here, and that's a big add for the Celtics. So very big pickup by Brad Stevens. Another big news piece within the Celtics organization is the Celtics traded former 2020 first-round pick, 14th overall selection in the 2020 draft, Aaron Nesmith, Daniel Theis, and a 2023 first-round pick for Pacers star point guard Malcolm Brogdon. Boston also sent Nick Stauskas, Jawan Morgan, and Malik Fitz as well to Indiana to even out the money in the deal. I'll start by saying this. I absolutely love this trade for the Celtics. I think it probably is, in my opinion, the best offseason move by any GM of any team so far within the first week of free agency in the NBA. Brad Stevens literally stole Brogdon. If you look at it, he only gave up obviously a first-round pick. I know people value that more than they probably should, since in the NBA, first-round picks aren't as heavily valued as they are in, let's say, the NFL. But if you look at it, a first-round pick with Aaron Nesmith and Daniel Theis to get a star point guard like Malcolm Brogdon, something the Celtics have desperately needed, a point guard that can actually facilitate and help calm down the team. The Celtics have been struggling with turnovers now for the last season or two, and they really haven't had a true point guard that's been healthy at least. Kemba Walker was hurt a ton. Obviously, Dennis Schroeder didn't work out and was traded, but they really haven't had a true point guard that can help the team with ball control and calm them down in situations where they're very likely to turn the ball over. And we know Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, very turnover-prone players. So I think Malcolm Brogdon is a big piece, big add for the Celtics team. If you look at it, as I said, they only gave up a first-round pick. The Nick Stauskas, Jawan Morgan, and Malik Fitz, part of the deal, really was just to even out the money. So it wasn't like we're trading rotation players there. But it was really just Daniel Theis, a 2023 first-round pick, and Aaron Nesmith. And let's start with this. Aaron Nesmith, he appeared in 98 games for the Celtics, had 4 starts, averaged 12.7 minutes per game, 31.8% shooter from 3, 4.2 points per game to go along with 2.2 rebounds, and half of an assist per game. So he didn't really help the Celtics out too much in the minutes he played. His minutes did go down this year to 11 minutes per game, and he averaged 3.8 points per game in those 11 minutes on average. And here's the thing about Nesmith. I mean, he's only 22 years old, so I'm sure he could develop into a better player, but it wasn't going to be with the Celtics, especially a team that's trying to win now, and he wouldn't have had a spot in the rotation. The Celtics don't have time to waste and put in a guy that they're just trying to develop and give an extra year or two to develop a shot, help him with his defense. The Celtics need to win now, and it's a good position for Aaron Nesmith to be in now, being in Indiana, where they're in a huge rebuild, it looks like. I mean, Miles Turner will probably be the next person to be traded by them. They're in a huge rebuild. He's going to get his chance to shine and actually be able to take shots in big moments, probably. I'd imagine he'll be, 6th, 7th man off the bench. So he's going to play a key role for Indiana this year, a team that's young, basically trying to lose games. If you're giving up a guy like Brogdon, probably trading Miles Turner, and they traded Domantas Sabonis last year at the trade deadline from Sacramento. They did land Tyrese Halliburton, who's a great player, but it seems like they're a team that's going to tank for the next year or two and rebuild. So he's going to get himself some minutes now in Indiana, minutes he was not going to get in the Celtics, especially considering he played nothing in the playoffs really at all. So, as I said, only 22 years old, he could develop into a little bit more of a role player rather than just being, a 5 to 10 minutes per night in garbage time when the game's over. But I was always a fan of Nesmith. I think he's a good player, but it just wasn't going to work on the Celtics. I wish him the best, especially shooting-wise. I mean, he was a great shooter in college and then just didn't pan out to be that same exact shooter with the Celtics, only shooting 31.8% from 3. So wishing Nesmith nothing but the best. Then you look at Daniel Theis. He's under contract for each of the next 3 seasons with a team option in the 4th year of his deal. He's getting around $9 million per year, so $9 more million than the Celtics wanted to give him clearly, especially since they added him in that deal. He fell out of the rotation, though, every single time Robert Williams was healthy, and that was the thing. He never really played unless Robert Williams was out or Al Horford needed a breather. He was reacquired by the Celtics from Houston at the trade deadline in February, part of that Dennis Schroeder trade. In 21 games this year for the Celtics, Theis averaged 7.9 points per game, 4.7 rebounds, 35.7% shooter from 3, 59.8% shooter from the field. He has made himself a solid NBA career. This is the 6th NBA season he's going into. The German center is 30 years old, and hopefully he'll get more minutes on a team like the Pacers. A Pacers team that's probably trying to tank for this next upcoming season. If you look at it, I'm sure Miles Turner will be the next guy to be moved, and they just traded Brogdon, as I said, to the Celtics. So maybe he'll get more minutes. Theis on the Pacers, he just wasn't going to have a role in the Celtics this upcoming season. Neither was Nesmith. Neither one of these two guys, the two main pieces of this deal with that first-round pick, were going to have a role in this Celtics team, especially in crunch time. If you look at it, Nesmith didn't play at all in the NBA playoffs, and then Theis really only played when Robert Williams was out. When Robert Williams was healthy and ready to go, Theis wasn't in the game. And he was only in if, let's say, Al Horford needed a breather or Robert Williams needed a breather. But he wasn't going to have a role for this Celtics team in this upcoming season. So, very good deal for the Celtics there. And then you look at The other three guys the Celtics traded, Malik Fitz, Juwan Morgan, Nick Stauskas, they played a combined 15 games for the Celtics this season with an average of about 3 to 4 minutes per game, and all of those coming in garbage time typically. Fitz and Morgan, both of those guys are 25 years old. Stauskas, the former 8th overall pick of the 2014 NBA draft by Sacramento, he's 28 years old. Fitz and Morgan, I'm sure they'll probably be on the G League team and maybe make their way back up to the NBA roster if there's an injury. But they'll be able to develop probably in Indiana's G League system and then maybe make their way up and get a couple minutes off the bench. Then Stauskas, I'm not sure what's going to happen there. He'll probably end up being bought out. He's not really making much money anyways, but I don't see him being part of their future unless, they're trying to just have a veteran in the locker room that's played in the NBA, for 7-8 years. But if you look at it, Brogdon is the true point guard the Celtics needed, and they didn't really have to give up much to get him. 3 guys that only played in garbage time for a combined 15 games. Aaron Nesmith, who went down in minutes this year, only played 11 minutes per game and averaged 3.8 points per game off the bench. And then also Daniel Theis, a backup center that wasn't going to get minutes at all unless Robert Williams is hurt or Al Horford needed breathers, as I said. So you gave up 3 pieces that don't play off the bench unless it's garbage time. Aaron Nesmith, who will play minutes in the regular season, 10 minutes a game, but won't play in the NBA playoffs because, he's too much of a liability out there since he really wasn't the scorer he was at Vanderbilt. And then Daniel Theis, who wasn't going to get any minutes unless there was an injury. So you traded 5 guys there that weren't part of the Celtics' future and weren't going to play any key minutes this year in this upcoming season for the Celtics and a first-round pick to land Malcolm Brogdon, a true point guard that the Celtics have desperately needed and another scorer as well, both of which the Celtics desperately lacked and needed. As seen by everyone who watched the NBA Finals and the playoffs of the Celtics, they needed another scorer off the bench and a point guard. And you had a guy like Malcolm Brogdon, who's had a great 6-year career in the NBA. He was the 2017 Rookie of the Year, career 15.5-point scorer per game, 4.2 rebounds, 4.8 assists, just under a steal per game at 0.9 steals per game, 37.6% shooter from 3, 46.4% shooter from the field, and 88.1% shooter from the free throw line. He was acquired by Indiana in a sign and trade with the Milwaukee Bucks for a 4-year, $85 million contract in July of 2019. Last year with the Pacers, he did battle some injuries. He played in 36 games, averaged 19.1 points per game, 5.1 rebounds, 5.9 assists, shot 44.8% from the field, 85.6% from the free throw line. Did have a career low in three-point percentage, 31.2% from the three-point line. But he did miss a ton of games and battled a ton to try to stay healthy. He had an Achilles injury, a hamstring injury, and then also an AC joint injury in his shoulder. So he wasn't really healthy for much of the season at all. He missed 46 games. So if you look at it, though, the future of his contract is huge for the Celtics team. It's not like he's making $35 a year and the Celtics, just took on a big cap hit. The next 4 seasons, he's making $21.7 million, $22.6 million, $21.6 million, and $23.3 million in each of the next 3 years. So he's not making a lot of money and is addressing needs that this Celtics team had. It was glaring. Everyone knew that watching NBA Finals and watch the playoffs, the Celtics needed bench depth. They needed more scoring. They needed someone that's not going to turn the ball over. And Malcolm Brogdon is helping you with the ball control, which he turns the ball over a little himself. But now you have a true point guard that's going to help you in crunch time and will break a press and will not turn the ball over with a bad pass like the Celtics have been so prone to doing. If you watch Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, their ability to pass the ball in crunch time is just so careless. Now you have a point guard that can slow the game down. You have another guy that can score, so it just doesn't have to be Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum every play. Then you have a free throw shooter, which the Celtics needed a great free throw shooter in that starting lineup. And they have that now. If Brogdon's in the starting lineup or he's off the bench, either way, I'm sure he's going to be playing in crunch time, whether he starts or doesn't. He's going to be, in the game with 2 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, the Celtics down 2, the Celtics up 2. He'll always be in the game in those moments. You have a great free throw shooter. Now you have a true point guard. And I'm going to break it down even more. You address bench scoring, bench depth, with the addition of Brogdon and Gallinari, whether it's Marcus Smart or Malcolm Brogdon starting. Your bench immediately becomes better because one of them's going to be on the bench, and they both are good enough to be starting. So your bench is much stronger than it was before, and obviously everyone knows that, especially if the Celtics NBA Finals odds are going up. And that's because they gave up nothing to get Malcolm Brogdon. 3 players, Fitz, Morgan Stauskas, who only played in garbage time with a minute to go, if they ever did play, 15 games combined between the three of them. So three guys that had no future with the Celtics. You trade Aaron Nesmith, who only played 10 minutes per game or 11 minutes per game in the regular season, but got no minutes in the NBA playoffs and the NBA Finals because he was a liability out there. He couldn't shoot. He couldn't hit the threes like he was in college. And then Daniel Theis, who has no value unless Robert Williams is hurt, Aaron or Al Horford needs a breather. So you traded five guys on a first-round pick and landed a star point guard like Malcolm Brogdon. Of course your odds to win the NBA Finals are going to go up. And rightfully so. He's such a good player. He's a great addition. You gave up nothing to get him. And Brogdon's more of a combo guard, so he can help you bring the ball up and help facilitate and find, the open player. But he's also a shooter, so he's not a true point guard, but he's a combo guard, so he can do both. Be a point guard and a shooting guard. He's kind of a mix. But Brad Stevens, by addressing huge needs in bench scoring and bench depth with these two additions in Brogdon and Gallinari, are two huge solutions. Everyone knew, watching Game 5 and Game 6 of the NBA Finals, that the Celtics had no bench scoring and bench depth. None. The Celtics had no depth. Derek White, Grant Williams, and Peyton Pritchard could not help you at all. They couldn't cut it. They were a liability on both ends of the floor, and most importantly, they gave you no help offensively, which they were doing earlier in the NBA Finals, and that if you look at it in the Milwaukee series and Miami Heat series. The Celtics had 10 bench points in Game 5. 6 of those 10 bench points came in the last minute of the game from Luke Kornet and Aaron Nesmith, and only 4 bench points in Game 6. Game 5, they had 10 bench points, and I just had 6 of those points came in the last minute of the game from Luke Kornet and Aaron Nesmith. So take away those 6 points in the last minute in garbage time when both teams gave up. The Celtics had 4 bench points in Game 5, and then 4 bench points in Game 6. Grant Williams and Derek White could not be on the floor. And that forced Ime Udoka to keep the starters in the game for just about the whole thing, which he shouldn't have had to. You should have better depth on the bench, guys you can trust. And the Celtics didn't have that. White shot 32.7% from the field in the NBA Finals, and his last 2 games was 1 for 10 from the floor, 0 of 5 from 3, 5 rebounds, 1 assist, 0 steals. So he wasn't helping you scoring-wise, going 1 for 10 from the floor and 0 of 5 from 3. Wasn't helping you defensively with no steals. And he wasn't helping you playmaking-wise with 0 or 1 assist in the last 2 games. Then you look at Grant Williams. In his last 3 NBA Finals games, he averaged 3 points per game, 50% shooting from the floor, 1.7 rebounds, 0 steals, and 1 block per game. He had 3 blocks in the last 3 games. So he finished within his last 3 games a stat line of 9 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 blocks. Didn't help you at all in the offensive end, 9 points in 3 games. Shooting 50% from the floor. Didn't help you at all really defensively. I know he had the 3 blocks, but rebounds-wise, only 1.7 rebounds in the last 3 games for a total of 5 rebounds in his last 3 NBA Finals games. That's not helping you at all. And he wasn't helping you much on the offensive end. As I just said, 3 points per game. He was giving you some points in the Milwaukee series and Miami Heat series. He'd get hot every now and then, hit a couple threes. But out in the last 3 games of the NBA Finals, Derek White and Grant Williams, there's no other way to say it, they could not help you in any way, shape, or form in Games 5 or Game 6 of the NBA Finals. They couldn't help you. And the Warriors knew that. The Celtics knew that. The Celtics needed more scoring and needed more bench depth. And that's what these 2 additions, Brogdon and Gallinari, are. And who knows who's going to start between Brogdon and Marcus Smart. But I'll tell you this. Immediately, no matter who starts between the 2 of them, your bench becomes better, automatically. And is a lot stronger than it was in the NBA Finals and was before the NBA Finals. No matter who started between the 2 of them, one of them is going to be on your bench, and both of them are qualified to be a starting point guard. As I said, Brogdon's more of a combo guard, but he's more of a true point guard than Marcus Smart is, in my opinion. Very similar players. Neither one are going to be a floor general like Chris Paul. But I think Brogdon's a better addition to the Celtics starting lineup than Marcus Smart is at the point guard position. Although Marcus Smart didn't play bad at all. He actually played well in the NBA Finals. But if you look at it, no matter who starts between the 2 of them, your Celtics bench is automatically better than it was. Both Smart and Brogdon are more than qualified enough to be a starting point guard on any team, most teams. What these 2 additions, though, on Brogdon and Gallinari do is strengthen not only a ton of bench scoring and bench depth, but also free throw shooting. And to me, that's a big thing. If you look at it, Jason Tatum, who most people would say is the Celtics' best player, to me, I think Jaylen Brown's better. If I had to pick between the 2 of them, I'm picking Jaylen Brown. I think he's better personally. But that's besides the point. Jason Tatum shot 21 of 32 from the free throw line in the NBA Finals, had a 65.6% free throw percentage. The Celtics needed better scorers from the free throw line, and that's what they added. Gallinari and Brogdon will help you heavily in that area of free throw shooting. I think Brad Stevens knew that. Everyone knew the Celtics couldn't shoot free throws. We were crying for every call on them to get to the line and not hit them. Gallinari and Brogdon have been great career free throw shooters. As a matter of fact, which I did a ton of this research and I gathered a ton of information about where they were in the NBA this past season, historically, among active players I looked at for Gallinari because he's a very good career free throw shooter. He's actually very high among active players in career free throw percentage. But we'll start with Brogdon. Was first in the NBA in free throw percentage in the 2018-2019 season with a 92.8% free throw percentage. He has a career 88.1% free throw percentage and shot 85.6% from the free throw line this past season in Indiana. And then you look at Gallinari. It's even more impressive. He's sixth among active players in career free throw percentage with an 87.7% free throw percentage, which is very impressive. Sixth among active players. Had a 90.4% free throw percentage this past season. He's 21st in NBA history with a career 87.7% free throw percentage. So sixth among active players and 21st in NBA history. And then in NBA playoff history, which we know, as I said, Jason Tatum could not hit a free throw for the life of him in the NBA Finals, 21 of 32. Gallinari is seventh in NBA playoff history with a 90.1% free throw percentage in the NBA playoffs. Compare that to Jason Tatum shooting 65% from the free throw line in the NBA Finals. That's a huge difference. Huge difference. So the Celtics addressed not only more scoring depth, they needed more scorers, they needed more bench depth, they needed more bench scoring. That's what they got with these two additions. They also got free throw shooting. And let's look at the scoring depth. The Celtics added two more scorers that they desperately needed. Malcolm Brogdon averaged 19.1 points per game this past season. Gallinari, 11.7 points per game this past season for Atlanta. And I'm going to list a few other statistics that I found when I was researching how Gallinari compares to the rest of active players and historically in offensive rating. I did a ton of this research to prove to you how important these two additions are to the Celtics team. Gallinari's eighth among active players in career offensive rating with a 118.91 rating. He's 15th in the history of the NBA with a 118.91 offensive rating. So 8th among active players in career offensive rating and 15th in NBA history. Then you look at turnovers, which the Celtics, as I talked about, they couldn't stop turning the ball over. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, they were automatic turnovers in the NBA Finals. Danilo Gallinari averaged 0.6 turnovers per game this past season with Atlanta. So less than one turnover per game, just about half a turnover every game. So that's one turnover every 2 games just about. And then also, he's 5th among active players in turnover percentage with an 8.46 turnover percentage per 100 plays. He had the second best turnover percentage in the NBA this past season, in the 2021-2022 NBA season, turning the ball over just 5.4% of every 100 plays. Danilo Gallinari is a huge addition to the Celtics team, not only for scoring, not only for three-point shooting and scoring off the bench, but free throw percentage, shooting free throws in clutch situations in crunch time. As I said, he was 7th among active players, 7th in NBA playoff history in career free throw percentage, and then a 6th among active players in career free throw percentage. So he's 7th in playoff history with a 90.1% free throw percentage, and then he's 6th among active players in career free throw percentage with an 87.7% free throw percentage. And then you look at his turnovers. Had the second lowest turnover percentage in the NBA this past season. He's helping you scoring-wise, shooting-wise, free throw shooting-wise, and with turnovers. And Brogdon adds you another scorer and a playmaker, combo guy who's going to help you a ton on the offensive end, and also will help you shooting-wise at the free throw line and with turnovers. Huge additions, both of those pickups by Brad Stevens. And as I said, you gave up really nothing to get him. Nothing you gave up to get Brogdon. Danilo Gallinari you signed with the taxpayer mid-level exception, 2 years, $13 million. And then for Brogdon, you gave up Fitz, Morgan, and Stauskas, 3 guys that are never going to play, that don't have a future with the Celtics. You gave up Aaron Nesmith, who struggled to get minutes at all, even in the regular season, 11 minutes per game. And a lot of it, came in the middle of the game. He'd never be playing in crunch time typically. And didn't play at all. He fell completely out of the rotation in the NBA playoffs and the NBA finals because you couldn't trust him out there. And then also Daniel Theis, who has no role on the Celtics, unless Robert Williams is hurt or Al Horford needs a breather. So 5 pieces that don't really have any role for this Celtics team, a team that's contending and trying to win the NBA Finals, would have no role this upcoming season, and a first-round pick, and you added Malcolm Brogdon. That's a hell of a deal. What a move by Brad Stevens. Anyways, now I'm going to move on to the Kevin Durant, Kyrie, Irving saga in Brooklyn and what's going on there. The Wolves supposedly want to get Kevin Durant over the weekend, but they did not want to split ways with Anthony Edwards or Karl Anthony Towns. And rightfully so, I wouldn't want to trade either one of those two guys. There's no way you can honestly get Kevin Durant without giving up one of those two guys. So if you had to pick one of them, I would just keep Edwards and Cat together because I think Minnesota has a great young core now. And there's no way of getting Kevin Durant without giving him up. So at the end of the day, I think the Wolves did the right move. They also traded for Rudy Gobert, which I'm going to get into in my episode tomorrow. But supposedly the Nets' asking price, according to ESPN's Mark Spears, for Kevin Durant, is they want a younger future All-Star, lots of picks, the ability to swap picks, and another starter. And that's pretty much in line with a couple of my proposals that I gave my last episode of what a realistic trade would look like for Kevin Durant. I said it would probably be Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, probably Robert Williams, and 2 first-round picks, or maybe 3 first-round picks, whatever it be. That might seem like a lot, who knows? But I know if you're getting a player like Kevin Durant, the Nets are going to want a ton in return. You're not going to get Kevin Durant for free, and that's a reality of the situation. According to Shams Charania, who covers the NBA for The Athletic, the Nets are making moves in free agency with the idea that there is a possibility that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving will both be on the starting roster for this upcoming season on opening night. Now, if they could be on the Nets starting roster on opening night, it would be absolutely nuts. This team is an absolute roller coaster. A roller coaster that doesn't stop. It just keeps going. You don't know where it's going. Turns right, turns left, goes up, goes down. No one knows what's going on in Brooklyn. No one knows what the future looks like in Brooklyn. What are the chances they run it back? Now I'm hearing Kendrick Perkins say yesterday he thinks Kevin Durant's trade request is just a ploy to try to get Kyrie Irving more money. Who knows what's going to happen in Brooklyn? Imagine they were to run it back. Supposedly, over the last day or so, there's no traction between a trade for Kevin Durant or a trade for Kyrie Irving. So there's no traction towards a trade for either one of those guys. Supposedly, the Lakers were trying to make a run at Kyrie Irving, which I'm sure everyone knows because LeBron and Kyrie, former teammates. The Lakers are desperate, supposedly according to reports, and want to move Russell Westbrook for Kyrie Irving. But their main issue is that the Lakers front office does not want to send multiple first-round picks to make that happen, to get rid of Russ's expiring 1-year contract. Kyrie Irving's also on an expiring contract with 1 year left after he opted into his last year of his contract with Brooklyn. And I've said this many times, I don't think Westbrook is the reason to blame for what happened in LA this past season. He had 10 triple-doubles this past season. Compare it to last season, so in the 2021-2022 NBA season this past year, he had 10 triple-doubles. In the 2020-2021 NBA season with the Washington Wizards, he had 38. Russ was not allowed to do what he does best, which is play confidently. And people say, oh, what he does best is stat pad. No, it's play confidently. He was criticized way too much, and he could never take a shot without the fear of, oh, if I miss this, everyone's going to be posting everywhere on Instagram and Twitter and talking on ESPN tomorrow morning. Every shot Russell Westbrook missed was publicized. He couldn't play the game confidently. He couldn't play without all the criticism and the backlash. So I hope Russell Westbrook gets a new home and has somewhere else to play. So he's not the scapegoat for what happened in the Lakers organization this past year. He's not the problem, in my opinion. Now I'm going to move on to Rudy Gobert. The star center was traded from the Utah Jazz to the Minnesota Timberwolves for an absolute blockbuster return. 3 unprotected first-round picks in 2023 and 2025 and 2027. So 3 unprotected first, 2023, 2025, and 2027. A 2029 top 5 protected first-round pick. A 2026 pick swap, along with Walker Kessler, who is the number 22 overall pick in this year's draft, Malik Beasley, Jared Vanderbilt, Leandro Bolmero, and Patrick Beverley. So Gobert, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, 3-time All-Star, 6-time First-Team All-Defensive Team selection in the NBA, and 4-time All-NBA. Gobert's coming off a career best in league-leading season with a 14.7 rebounds per game average, and he's also coming off a career high in league-leading field goal percentage at 71.3% from the floor. 2 straight years he has led the NBA at field goal percentage. And he coming off this season, 15.6 points per game, 14.7 rebounds per game, 2.1 blocks, which was third in the NBA, and 0.7 steals per game. I think Rudy Gobert, is a huge addition to this Minnesota Timberwolves team. And I know he gets a lot of backlash. But if you look at what they gave up, ton of first-round picks, ton of players, it shows this Minnesota Timberwolves team is going all in. And I respect that. Rudy Gobert is not a bad player whatsoever. I know he gets a lot of backlash, and people say he's soft and he's not that great, overrated, kind of like Karl-Anthony Towns. People aren't too big fans of either one of those guys. I like both of them. But an interesting stat I found in my research, when I was comparing rebound percentage among players in the NBA, Rudy Gobert was number one in total rebound percentage in the NBA this past season, grabbing 25% of available rebounds when he's on the floor, and was number one in defensive rebounding percentage at 36.3%. So he rebounded 36.3% of rebounds, potential defensive rebounds, when he was on the floor. I think Gobert gets too much criticism. And I think he's a great player. As I said, I think him and Karl-Anthony Towns both get too much criticism. He was second in offensive rating this past season with a 137.4 rating. And he's number one among active players with a career 127.43 offensive rating. He had the second best defensive rating in the NBA this past season with a 103.2 rating. He was number one in true shooting percentage with a 73.2% field goal percentage. Was number one in effective field goal percentage, shooting 71.3% from the floor. If you look at these statistics, he's been great offensively and great defensively. And I'm just going to run over them again just so people know how good he is and how he gets too much criticism. He was number one in total rebound percentage in the NBA this past season. He's number one among active players with a 127.43 offensive rating. He had the number two offensive rating in all of the NBA last year with a 137.4 rating. He was second this past season in defensive rating with a 103.2 rating. Number one in true shooting percentage. Number one in effective field goal percentage. And is third among active players with a 100.63 career defensive rating. So he's been great offensively and great defensively, not only this past season, but statistically his whole career. I think Rudy Gobert is a hell of a player. I think he's a huge pickup for this Wolves team. And as I said, I completely respect them going all in. I really like the Karl-Anthony Towns Rudy Gobert duo. Probably a lot more than most people. I think they'll be dominating the glass. And I think Cat will only become a better player with Gobert on his right side or his left side. With Gobert helping him defend in the paint, Cat's responsibilities completely go down. He doesn't have to carry the paint. It doesn't have to be the anchor down there as much as he had to be this past year and the past few years in Minnesota. Now he has help in the paint. Rudy Gobert, who is so great defensively and offensively, according to offensive and defensive rating in the NBA, and also the league leading rebounder in rebounds per game. Karl-Anthony Towns is only going to become better this year. The Minnesota Timberwolves in general are only going to become better this year. They were 46 and 36 this past season, and they only have 2 playoff appearances since 2004. 2 in the last 7 years. They made it last season in the playoffs, but ended up losing in 6 games to the Memphis Grizzlies, which was their only second time to the playoffs in 18 seasons. They haven't won a playoff series since 2004. This Minnesota Timberwolves team is going all out. They want to win. They want to turn this franchise around. I completely respect it. 2 playoff series in 18 seasons. Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So I'm proud of this team for going all out. And if you look at it on the other side, the Utah Jazz, after making the playoffs 6 straight seasons, they're in for a deep rebuild. They traded Royce O'Neal, a forward to the Brooklyn Nets, for a 2023 first-round pick. They fired longtime coach Quinn Snyder after 8 seasons. He had a .585 winning percentage with them in his 8 years. And then they hired Celtics assistant coach Will Hardy, which I mentioned in my last episode, now the youngest NBA coach in the NBA. I would not be surprised if Donovan Mitchell would be traded next. I don't know if they would want to do that, but if they're in it for a deep rebuild, I don't know if he's going to want to be a part of that. Especially if it's going to be 3 or 4 years. He's at his prime right now, or just about getting to his prime. He's not going to want to sit around there while they're waiting for, 5 or 6 draft picks in the next few years from Minnesota. So now I'm going to switch gears completely to the Red Sox. The Sox won their July 4th contest against the Rays 4-0. Sox came off a tough weekend series against the Cubs, but also last season midweek against the Toronto Blue Jays in Toronto. So getting a 4-0 win yesterday was huge. Trevor Story hit his 13th home run of the season in the 4th inning. Rafael Devers was 2 for 4 with an RBI and a run scored. JD Martinez was 1 for 4 with a run scored. But I think the biggest storyline of this game is Sox rookie pitcher Cutter Crawford. He had a tremendous game in relief of Austin Davis, who was the Sox opener for this game. Crawford pitched 5.1 innings, giving up just 2 hits, issuing just 1 walk, and striking out 8, and allowing no runs. He was absolutely electric out of the bullpen. And imagine if he keeps doing that. Imagine he gets another opportunity and does that again. How much better this Sox pitching staff becomes when you have a guy like Cutter Crawford, who they didn't really have high expectations for this upcoming season. Imagine he contributes and it does that again. Could be a huge addition to this Red Sox bullpen. John Schreiber, speaking of the bullpen, picked up his 3rd save, lowered his season ERA to .66. In the process of doing that, which is 3rd best among relievers in baseball this season. So he's had a terrific season for the Red Sox out of the bullpen. One of the only bright spots, consistent bright spots, that is. None of the Red Sox have had their streaks of pitchers being really good out of the bullpen and struggling, but he's been playing very well all season, and he should be an all-star. I don't know how he can't be, but I know it's really a popularity contest of how these guys are picked, so I guess you never know. Heading into Monday's game against Tampa Bay, so yesterday's contest against the Rays, J.D. Martinez's last 29 games, it was abysmal at the plate. From May 30th to July 3rd, he was 24 for 114 with a .211 batting average, a .646 OPS, 3 home runs, 10 RBIs, and 31 strikeouts. In his last 13 games heading into yesterday's game against the Rays, he was 7 for 52 with a 135 batting average, a .361 OPS, no home runs, 5 RBIs, and a .207 on-base percentage. And I'm telling you these statistics of heading into the Rays game on Monday because I gathered a ton of these stats before I recorded this episode and wasn't able to record this on Monday. I was hoping to record this yesterday and talk about the Red Sox and all the statistics heading into yesterday's game with the Rays, but I ended up not getting to it, so that's why I'm doing it today and saying all the statistics of heading into yesterday's game. So to continue, as I said, his last 13 games hit 135, that's J.D. Martinez. His last home run was June 14th. And then you look at Xander Bogaerts, another guy who's been struggling at the plate. His last 12 games heading into yesterday's contest against the Tampa Bay Rays, hitting 186, 8 for 43 from the plate, with a .536 OPS, no home runs, no RBIs, and 11 strikeouts. The last time Xander Bogaerts drove a run in, guess it, June 16th, over 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago now. His last home run was June 3rd, a full month ago. His previous home run before the June 3rd one was May 27th. Is he hurt? I mean, who knows? That could be the reason he's not playing up to the level and talent that we know Xander Bogaerts can play. He got the day off yesterday, so there's a potential chance he is hurt. I know he's been battling wrist injuries the past few years, so maybe he is hurt, and that's the reason he's not playing as well as he usually does. And then now moving on to Rafael Devers. No RBIs in his last 6 games heading into Monday's game against the Rays, hitting .222 with a .572 OPS over that stretch. He's 6 for 27 in those 6 games heading into yesterday's game. 7 strikeouts to 2 walks. So he's not as patient at the plate as he usually is. 2 walks and 27 at-bats compared to 7 strikeouts. Usually a lot better than that. And Xander Bogaerts in his last 6 games. 4 for 22, 182 batting average, .535 OPS, 4 strikeouts to 4 walks. Even strikeouts to walks. And he's usually a lot more patient at the plate too. He's one of the best 2-strike hitters in all of baseball. JD's last 5 games, he got Sunday off. The last game against the Chicago Cubs in that series, he got that day off. His last 5 games, JD Martinez is hitting .048, .048 batting average, 1 for 21 at the plate, a 139 OPS, 10 strikeouts, 0 walks. Yet, if you look at it, that's another guy, JD Martinez, who's usually a lot more patient at the plate, 10 strikeouts to no walks over his last 5 games. Xander Bogaerts, 4 strikeouts to 4 walks over his last 6 games. Rafael Devers, 7 strikeouts to 2 walks in his last 6 games. So that's 3 guys that are usually a little bit more patient at the plate, or a lot more patient at the plate, depending on who you're looking at, that are not having the same results at the plate. They're usually a lot more patient. And as a result, since they're not being patient, the result is they're not hitting as well as they usually do. They're struggling. Speaking of one guy, though, that actually has been great at the plate for the Red Sox over his last 13 games heading into yesterday, Alex Verdugo was a 13-game hitting streak in his last 13 games, 19 for 52 at the plate with a .365 batting average, 2 home runs, 10 RBIs, a .970 OPS, a .431 on-base percentage, and just actually extended his 13-game hitting streak to 14 games yesterday. He's been the only player for the Red Sox who's been consistent at the plate over the last 14 games. And although we didn't end up winning a lot of those Cubs games, he was a big reason we were scoring runs. He was great. Especially also in the Toronto series. Verdugo was great in that too. Two series the Red Sox completely struggled in. Alex Verdugo was very good. The Toronto series, speaking of that, was an absolute mess for the Red Sox. JD Martinez was 0 of 13 in the series with 1 RBI, a run scored, 6 strikeouts to no walks, and a 0.71 OPS. 0.71 OPS. 0.071 OPS for JD Martinez, which is abysmal. Then Rafael Devers, 2 for 12 of the series with a 167 batting average, 1 run scored, no RBIs, 2 walks, and 2 strikeouts. So no RBIs by Devers, 1 RBI by JD Martinez, and then you look at Xander Bogaerts. No RBIs as well in that series. 3 for 12 with a 250 batting average, 2 walks to 4 strikeouts, 3 runs scored. The Red Sox 3 sluggers, their 3 best players, JD Martinez, Rafael Devers, and Xander Bogaerts, in that Toronto series were combined 5 for 37 with a 135 batting average, 12 strikeouts to 4 walks, 1 RBI, and 5 runs scored. You need to be better. You need your 3 best players to be better than that. Then you look at the Cubs series. Game 1 Friday afternoon. The Sox are 4-0 after 2 innings. Everything started off great. Jarren Duran, his first career home run was on the first pitch of the game. Sox up 1-0. Then JBJ, Jackie Bradley Jr., comes up in the second inning. Bases clearing double, 3-run score. With the bases loaded, he ends his 0 for 24 streak. 3 RBIs in that play, 3 runs batted in. Huge for Jackie Bradley. JD Martinez and Bogaerts and Devers, though, in that game, combined 3 of 13 with 3 strikeouts. And then also, another bad part of that game, Rich Hill injured his knee. Even though the Red Sox started so hot, everything was going so well, being up 4-0, and Jarren Duran hitting his first career home run, and JBJ playing so well and having a bases clearing double. Things just went downhill for the Red Sox. They ended up losing that game catastrophically, as they typically do with their bullpen. Rich Hill goes out injured. He actually had a ton of walks in that game. Walked 3 of the last 4 batters he faced. Big reason he came out of that game. Sox ended up losing Friday night. Then you look at Saturday night. The issue with that game was the Red Sox with runners in scoring position were 1 for 7. So they couldn't get guys across the plate with runners on second or third. JD Martinez was 0 for 4 in that game, 2 strikeouts in those 4 at-bats. Devers was 1 for 4 with 2 strikeouts. Xander Bogaerts 0 for 3 with a walk. A combined, between those 3 sluggers, 1 for 11, 2 strikeouts, and 1 walk. If those 3 guys choose the same game to not show up in, the Red Sox aren't going to win any games. If all 3 of them are having bad games in the same night or bad series, the Red Sox are going to struggle. And that's what you saw in the Toronto series, and that's what you saw in the Cubs series. Sunday afternoon, the Red Sox ended up winning, which was a huge relief. The Sox were 2 for 19, though, with runners in scoring position, which is a 105 batting average. Devers recovered a little bit. He was 2 of 6 with 2 strikeouts. Bogaerts, another tough game, 0 for 3 with a walk. JD Martinez sat out. So Bogaerts, Devers, Martinez in this last game combined 2 for 9, 2 strikeouts, and a walk. Bogaerts ended up actually leaving the game, had a lacerated knee, needed 7 stitches after he was clipped by Wilson Contreras trying to steal second base. But if you look at it, the big 3 in the Cubs series, so I already said what they did in the Toronto series, they struggled. But in the Cubs series, things weren't better. The big 3 combined in the Cubs series were 6 for 33 with a 181 batting average, 2 walks to 7 strikeouts, no RBIs, no runs scored. In their last 6 games between Toronto and Chicago, which I'm not going to talk about Monday's game against Tampa Bay since I crunched all these stats before Monday's game, since I really wanted to talk about this yesterday, in the morning, but since it was July 4th, it's just tough to find the time. In the Toronto and Chicago series, in those 6 games combined, they were 11 for 70 with a 157 batting average, 19 strikeouts to 6 walks, 1 RBI, and 5 runs scored. For comparison, if you want to really see how bad they were, Jackie Bradley Jr. has been struggling heavily at the plate over the last 2 weeks. Had 3 RBIs in that game, Friday game against the Cubs. So he has 3 RBIs in his last 6 games. Devers, Bogaerts, and Martinez, 1 RBI in their last 6 games. Jackie Bradley Jr. has 3. They have 1 combined between the 3 of those guys. And it's not just those 3 guys struggling. Trevor Story was struggling too in the Cubs series. 1 for 9 with 4 strikeouts, no walks, a 111 batting average, no RBIs, and 2 runs scored. Story in his last 6 games, between the Toronto series and the Cubs series, 2 for 16 with a 125 batting average, 479 OPS, 1 home run, 2 runs batted in, 8 strikeouts to 1 walk, and 3 runs scored. So you have 4 best offensive players, 4 guys who are being paid the most money, Xander Bogaerts, Rafael Devers, J.D. Martinez, and Trevor Story, were awful in the last 2 series against Toronto and Chicago. Trevor Story in his last 6 games, 2 for 16 with a 125 batting average, 8 strikeouts to 1 walk. Then you look at Xander Bogaerts, J.D. Martinez, and Rafael Devers, combined 11 for 70, 157 batting average, 19 strikeouts to 6 walks, 1 RBI, and 5 runs scored in their last 6 games. That's abysmal. You need them to be better. You need those 4 guys to be better, especially with how much money they're all making. All making a ton. I know Xander Bogaerts and J.D. Martinez and Trevor Story actually, have bigger contracts. So they really, have had multi-year deals. Rafael Devers doesn't have that yet. But he's one of your best players. One of your 4 best players. He needs to be better. He's going to be getting a ton of money this upcoming offseason, wherever he's paid. Whenever Rafael Devers is paid, he's going to make it 30 plus a year. So I'm considering him a heavily paid player because that's how good he is. Anyways, moving on now, Jarren Duran has been unreal at the leadoff spot for the Red Sox. I'm hoping he stays in center field even when Kike Hernandez comes back from the IL, who you guys have known. I'm not too big of a Kike fan. He's been abysmal at the plate. Tough to watch this whole season. But if you look at it, Jarren Duran has been a lot better at the leadoff spot. In his last 5 games heading into Monday's contest, he's 11 for 24 with a 458 batting average, a 1.208 OPS, 1 home run, 4 RBIs, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts, 2 stolen bases, and a 5-game hitting streak in his last 5 games. He missed the Toronto series because he didn't have the vaccine, but he just said in an interview a couple days ago that he will be getting it, so he should be ready to play in Toronto in September. So he missed the Toronto series. He would have been a big help. But his last 5 games, he's hitting 458 with a 1.208 OPS, a home run, 4 RBIs, and 2 stolen bases with a 5-game hitting streak. His ability to go from first to third on a single is a legitimate weapon, a weapon this Red Sox team needed. They didn't really have much speed. Besides Trevor Story having 10 stolen bases, the Red Sox don't really have many stolen base threats. And now you have another one, Jarren Duran. He has a hit in 14 of 16 games, and the Red Sox are 11-5 in games he plays. He strikes out 19.6% of the time, 13 strikeouts and 66 at-bats. But if you look at last year, he's improved heavily. Last year, strikeouts were his issue. 40 strikeouts and 107 at-bats, which is 37.3% of the time he struck out. So he cut it in half completely, 37% to 19%. 37% strikeout percentage last year per at-bat, and now a 19% strikeout percentage this season. Cut it in half completely. Jarren Duran has been an improvement at the plate heavily, and the Red Sox team really needed him to be. Now, if you look at it, Kike Hernandez and Jarren Duran compared, as I just said, I think that if you think about it, I think Jarren Duran should be the starting center fielder and the leadoff hitter when Kike Hernandez comes back. I think he's the better player. But if you look at it, Kike Hernandez in 37 games as a leadoff hitter, 34 of 163 with a 208 batting average, 24 runs scored, 17 RBIs, 27 strikeouts. Now you look at Jarren Duran, 16 games heading into yesterday's matchup with Tampa Bay, hitting .333 with a .919 OPS, 4 stolen bases, 6 RBIs, 2 triples, 6 doubles, and 10 runs scored. I don't think it's comparison. I think Jarren Duran is the better player. I think the Red Sox are a better team with Jarren Duran as a leadoff hitter. And even if Kike Hernandez comes back, Jarren Duran should still be the leadoff hitter. He's earned that right. He's been playing so well as of late. I know the more games he plays, I'm sure his batting average and his OPS and his slugging percentage will all go down. Because naturally, the more games you play, you're not going to stay that high the whole season. But I think he is the better player. I think he's better than Kike Hernandez. I think the Red Sox are the better team. And I think he's a lot more valuable in the lineup and on the field than Kike Hernandez. Kike Hernandez might be a better defender, but Jarren Duran, his defense isn't that bad where you have to say, we can't put him in the lineup because he's not that good a defender. He's gotten a lot better, too, defensively this past year. His speed is nuts. He's catching bloopers that Kike Hernandez wouldn't catch. Who knows if JBJ would catch some of them. He's been a great improvement in this Red Sox lineup, and I'm excited to see him hopefully be the leadoff hitter for the rest of the season. But obviously, only time will tell there. So now to finish off this episode, I'm going to give an injury update for the Red Sox. Chris Sale in his last rehab stop for Portland went 4 innings, allowing 4 hits, 1 earned run, no walks, 7 strikeouts, 52 pitches in those 4 innings with 36 strikes. His fastball hung around 96 miles per hour, so it's great to see him get his velocity back. And he's supposed to be starting tomorrow for the Worcester Red Sox. It could be back in the Red Sox rotation as early as next week, according to John Morosi via Alex Cora. So that's a huge addition to that Red Sox pitching staff. We'll see how he does tomorrow with the Worcester Red Sox. I'll keep you guys updated there. And then Garrett Whitlock and Nate Eovaldi Garrett Whitlock was on the IL with the right hip inflammation, and then Nate Eovaldi, low back inflammation. Both are placed in the IL on June 9th. Whitlock is supposedly going to return to the bullpen when he is back healthy, according to Alex Cora. So the Red Sox bullpen immediately becomes better than it was now with him back in the bullpen. And obviously the starting rotation is a lot better with Nate Eovaldi in it. He's been the Red Sox ace for the last few seasons, especially with Chris Sale being out for the majority of the last 2 or 3 years now. Both guys are scheduled for bullpens today, so hopefully they do well and it goes well and they progress and are able to be back in the Red Sox pitching staff within the next week or two. Kike Hernandez has been progressing well with his right hip flexor strain. He could do a rehab assignment over the weekend. Cora said, who knows, could be back with the Red Sox within the next week, maybe is my best estimate. Rich Hill will be getting an MRI in his knee. He had a knee sprain in that Friday game against the Cubs, which I was just talking about. He's now wearing a brace. The 42-year-old pitcher has had a great season. The Red Sox, despite being 42. He's had a decent year for the Sox, 4-4 record with a 4.2 ERA. The win thing for him has been how well he performed at Fenway versus how well he performed away from Fenway. He was awful at Fenway, but then away from Fenway was great. At Fenway this season, 1-3 record, 6.49 ERA and 6 starts, allowing 6 home runs, 33 hits, and 19 earned runs in 26.1 innings. He had an 8.5 strikeout per 9 inning rate. Then you look at the road. 3-1 with a 2.84 ERA and 9 starts, 2 home runs allowed, 14 earned runs, 35 hits, and 44.1 innings pitched. And to go along with that, he's a 6.7 strikeout per 9 inning rate, which he does a lot better at Fenway strikeouts-wise with an 8.5 strikeout rate per 9 innings compared to a 6.7 on the road. But on the road, he's been a lot better, allowing 14 earned runs in 9 starts and 44.1 innings pitched. Then you look at just in 26.1 innings at Fenway, he's allowed 19 earned runs, so 5 more earned runs in 20 less innings. So 20 more innings he's pitched on the road, he's allowed 5 less runs. And has allowed just 2 more hits in those extra 18 innings. He's been a lot better on the road for the Red Sox and hopefully progresses well and gets back soon since the Red Sox really need him, especially when he's on the road. He's been pitching great. But even overall, the whole season, 4-4 with a 4.2 ERA you'll take for a 42-year-old pitcher. We should be the 4 or 5 on your staff when everyone's healthy. And who knows, maybe he'll be in the bullpen when he comes back. Especially if he comes back around the time Chris Sale gets back and Paxton gets back, he could end up being in the bullpen. And then your bullpen's better than it is now. So the Red Sox really have an interesting future now with Chris Sale coming back and Paxton coming back soon. And then also Whitlock coming back. Who knows what the bullpen's going to look like. Anyways, I just want to finish up this episode with the Baltimore Orioles. I talked a few times now in the last few weeks about how well they've been playing and how they've been turning their franchise around. And one thing I just found out was that this June, so the June 2022 part of the 2022 season, was the first winning month that the Baltimore Orioles have had since August of 2017. Very interesting. They really turned it around. They've had only one winning month now since August of 2017, and it was in June of 2022. So if that doesn't show you this Baltimore Orioles team is turning things around, I don't know what will. And I pointed them out a few episodes ago for how well they've been playing and how well they've been turning their season around. And how the franchise is turning a corner. The Baltimore Orioles are legitimately on the rise. There's no other way to say it. If you don't think so, I don't know what will convince you otherwise. You should just watch their games. They're a lot better than they were last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. This team's getting better, and they're starting to gel. And Jared Carabas just pointed out that since June 11th, the Orioles are 13-9. Only the Astros, Red Sox, and Yankees have better records in the American League over that stretch. The Orioles are 5-12, which he pointed out. The Orioles are 5-12 against Oakland and the Yankees this season, but have a 32-32 record, so a 500 record against all other Major League ball clubs. Hopefully they continue to play better baseball and continue to rise. I've always been a fan of Cedric Mullins and Trey Mancini, so seeing the Orioles play better as a team as a whole is something that's very promising, and hopefully they continue to play good baseball. Since baseball, the American League East, is only better when the Orioles are better. Since they have 4 legitimate playoff teams, and you have the Orioles that are just about 6 games out of the wild card spot, you have 5 teams that could be competing for 3 playoff spots, 3 wild cards. So the Yankees will probably end up winning the American League East. Then there will be 3 teams, which could be the Rays, Red Sox, and Blue Jays, get the 3 wild card spots. But who knows? The Orioles are only 6 games out, and there's a lot of baseball left. Which it might sound crazy, but only being 6 games out compared to what they've been typically out, 25-plus games out at this point in the season, it's very interesting. So hopefully they continue to play good baseball. Anyways, thank you guys so much for listening. This concludes my episode. I'm going to be back on hopefully tomorrow to talk about the NBA free agency frenzy and break down a lot of the big deals. I'll even talk about the Nathan's hot dog eating contest at Joey Chestnut winning his 15th title. And then hopefully I'll break down some more stuff about the Red Sox. Brian Bayo will be making his Major League debut tomorrow night. So hopefully in my episode tomorrow I'll be previewing that. And I'll even talk more about the Red Sox, how they've been playing, with Chris Sale obviously making another rehab start tomorrow in Worcester, and then also Brian Bayo's Red Sox Major League debut, two big events there, and then I'll even talk about Pivetta and how he performs in tonight's game against Tampa Bay. But anyways, thank you guys so much for listening. I truly appreciate it. Hope you guys have a good night. Stay safe and stay well. Thank you.